everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss about two very important modes of asexual reproduction, and they are budding and fragmentation. In previous video, we have already discussed about binary fission and multiple fission. So let's begin with budding. Now, in the process of budding, what happens is, as the name suggests, from parent's body, a small outgrowth develops, a small outgrowth or a bud-like structure develops, Now, you can see here in the picture, this is actually a parent body. This is the example of budding in yeast. So yeast, we all know it's a fungus. And yeast is the example of microscopic fungus. You must have heard about yeast earlier in your lower classes. Yeast or baker's yeast is actually used in preparing bakery items like cake, we eat bread, bun, muffins and all. So while preparing all these bakery items, we use baker's yeast, and baker's yeast is actually a fungus. Now this is the example of budding in yeast. Yeast reproduces by the process of asexual method, and that is budding. Now in the process of budding in yeast, a small bud-like structure or a small outgrowth develops from the parent body. Now this is parent body, and from this parent body you can see this small bud-like structure is formed. Now this small bud-like structure actually starts constricting, from the lower end. Constricting means it starts actually decreasing in the size so that it can detach from the parent body. So it starts constricting from the lower end, and while it's constricting, at the same time in parent body the nucleus is present. In the cell, nucleus is there. So this nucleus will first divide. It will get elongated and it will divide into two. So as I've told you in the previous video, that whenever asexual reproduction occurs or whenever any particular cell divides, so that cell first undergoes the division of nucleus, and this division of nucleus is known as karyokinesis. K-A-R-Y-O-N-I-S-I-S, karyokinesis. And after this nucleus completely gets divided, you can look here in the picture C. This nucleus is completely divided. And you can see here on the top of the parent body a small bud-like structure. Now this bud is present with the nucleus. And this is the parent body with its own nucleus. Now this bud further divides, and forms many small bud-like structures. So all these small bud-like structures are actually known as chain of yeast cells. So new yeast cells and cells are formed, and hence it forms a kind of chain of new yeast cells. And these are the daughter yeast. So they are also known as daughter yeast. And this one is the parent yeast. And finally what happens is, all this nucleus is divided. And now from the lower end of the bud, from this lower end it will get constricted completely, and this bud will detach and fall off, and it will now develop as a new individual. Even this first bud which was formed, this one will also constrict completely, and it will detach from the parent's body, and it will then develop as a new individual. So this is the process of budding. In budding, first a small outgrowth or bud develops from the parent cell, and then karyokinesis takes place. That means nucleus divides into two. So now a parent body as well as the new bud which was attached to the parent body, they both have nucleus. And then the chain of this yeast cells, new cells will be formed. And finally all these small buds, they detach from the parent body, they fall off, and then they develop as the new individual. And budding process can be found in yeast, it can be found in Hydra, and it can be found in gamules of sponges. Now we know these sponges are actually the organisms which belong to phylum Porifera. Under kingdom Animalia, the first phylum is phylum Porifera. That means they have pores in their body. So sponges are the example of phylum Porifera. So these sponges, they also form internal buds, and those internal buds are known as gamules. Okay. Now the next example is Hydra. You can see here, this is a picture of Hydra. Okay. First understand the process of budding in Hydra. This is the diagram of Hydra. Hydra is again microscopic. Okay. Now you can see here, these are actually known as tentacles of Hydra. Okay. These long, finger-like structures, or you can say the thread-like structures, they are called tentacles of Hydra. Okay. Now from the body of this Hydra, a small outgrowth develops, and this outgrowth is again known as bud. Okay. Now this is a developing bud. Now this bud grows in size. Okay. Now this bud also develops or forms new tentacles on it. Okay. And finally, as the bud grows completely, now what will happen? This bud will completely detach from the parent body. Okay. And it will fall off. And now it will grow as a new individual. Okay. So here you can see in Hydra also, what happens is Hydra also performs the process of reproduction by the process of budding. Okay. Here you can see the microscopic picture of Hydra. This is the body of Hydra. Okay. This is the body of Hydra. These are the tentacles. And this is the developing bud. Okay. So you can see here, this is the developing bud, and these are the developing tentacles. Okay. These are the developing tentacles of the new bud. Okay. And once this bud will get completely developed, it will detach itself from the parent body, it will fall off, and then it will grow into new individual. Next example of budding was gamules of sponges. I've already told you a little earlier in this video that sponges, they belong to phylum Porifera under kingdom Animalia. Okay. And these gamules are the internal buds. Okay. These are the small internal buds present inside the sponges. Okay. And these buds actually helps in producing new sponges. So it's capable of producing new sponges. Okay, so these this is called actually these gamules of sponges is introduced under asexual reproduction, because these gamules or these small buds are actually produced by the process of asexual reproduction. Okay, so they actually helps in developing new individual or an adult freshwater sponge. Now the next mode of asexual reproduction is fragmentation. Now here you can see, as the name suggests, fragmentation means making fragments of anything which you have. For example, you have a white paper and you are just tearing it into pieces. Okay, so what you are doing, you are actually breaking breaking down paper into small fragments or small pieces. Okay, so similarly in the process of fragmentation, the parent body, okay, the organism's body breaks down into smaller pieces. Okay, it will break down into distinct pieces, and each piece is now called as fragment. Okay, so in this method of asexual reproduction, the parent's body breaks down into distinct pieces, and then each fragment develops into the new individual. Okay, each fragment now is actually having the ability to regenerate itself into new individual. Okay, now this fragmentation can be seen in Hydra, Planaria and Spirogyra. Okay, now this Hydra we have seen in the previous slide. So Hydra can undergo budding. Okay, it can reproduce by the process of budding, and it can also reproduce by the process of fragmentation. So this first image actually shows fragmentation in Hydra. Okay, so this is an adult Hydra. For example, this Hydra breaks down from here. Okay, from this particular point, it's breaking down into two. Now you can see the upper part of Hydra is actually having tentacles and the upper part of the body, and the lower part of Hydra is just having this main body. Okay, so what happens is this upper part now grows into the complete Hydra, and lower part, as the lower part is having only this main body part, no tentacles, So new tentacles now grow on the top. Okay. So these fragments of Hydra, they actually grow, or you can say they actually regenerate into new Hydra. Okay, new organisms, two new organisms. Okay. So this Hydra undergoes fragmentation as well as budding. Next organism is algae. This algae is actually known as Spirogyra. Okay, so Spirogyra is actually an algae. Okay, it's a marine algae. Okay, you can see here these are actually the cells of this particular Spirogyra algae. Okay, now this algae actually also breaks down into different fragments. Okay, for example, this algae has broken down into three fragments: fragment 1, fragment 2, and fragment 3. Now each fragment has the ability to regenerate, or you can say to grow back into the new algae. Okay, into the new algae. Hence, Spirogyra algae also undergoes fragmentation process. It reproduces by the process of fragmentation. Okay, and this one is the image of Spirogyra algae under microscope. You can make a note of it. Spirogyra algae is actually having spiral chloroplast. Okay, it is having spiral chloroplast. Okay, it is having spiral chloroplast. So the shape of chloroplast is spiral. Okay, so Spirogyra algae also undergoes fragmentation. Now the last example of fragmentation is Planaria. Okay, Planaria, as you have already studied in lower classes, Planaria is actually the example of flat worm. That means the body of Planaria is completely flat and it belongs to phylum Platyhelminthes. Okay, this you already know. So Planaria is a flatworm. It belongs to phylum Platyhelminthes, and Planaria also reproduces by the process of fragmentation. Now, one organism, that is one body of Planaria, actually breaks down into three pieces. Okay, it breaks down into three fragments, and each fragment now grows or regenerates into the complete new individual. Okay, so you can look here in the diagram. This is the parent body. Parent body has divided into three fragments. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. And now each fragment had grown back. Okay, each fragment had actually regenerated into three distinct planaria. Okay, so this is how planaria reproduces, by the process of fragmentation and then regeneration. So we are done with this video. In next video, we are going to discuss about spore formation.